It's been a couple days and I'm over it. I'm spending this holiday weekend Monday running around my house, pointing at my children, screaming letter of the law and grounding them. This is the ArsenalVision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter. That's right. I've been just pointing at my children, letter of the law, you're grounded. I don't know what it's for. Just doing it, getting it out of my system. Letter of the law. Couple of things. So the transfer window happened and closed. Feels like a million years ago at this point, doesn't it? So we're going to do a Sterling scouting video. So that'll be over on Patreon this week. We're going to do a Brighton rewatch. We're going to do a power rankings because when Chelsea lose and Spurs lose and United lose, you kind of got to do a power rankings because even though Clive doesn't like Schadenfreude, I can slip some in. It's the perfect Trojan horse for Schadenfreude. So we've got the opportunity to do that. If you can't totally celebrate your own successes, you can always laugh at your rival's failure. That is an important part of what we do here. It is Labor Day as we record this here in the United States of America, meaning that Paul and I are off on a holiday Monday, which is nice. I am feeling very sort of holiday oriented. Don't know who said that. You might have heard a voice in the background there, but as no one has been introduced yet, it is unclear who that person might have been. So anyway, we're going to keep you busy during the interlull with loads and loads of good stuff over on Patreon, but we'll also have our main pods over here, and we'll have a bonus pod for everyone tomorrow that I think you're going to absolutely love. So just tease that. That's coming out tomorrow, and there'll be a chance to win a book, and there'll be all kinds of fun stuff there. So that's coming up. Let's get into a podcast that'll go like this. We're going to do the ref chat up top. Firstly, because I think until it's been handled, it's hard to get any other stuff out of the way. It kind of hangs over the conversation. So we'll do that first. Then we're going to break down the Brighton game from an actual tactical analytical standpoint, because whatever you think of the refereeing decisions, there's still the obligation for Arsenal to play the game and play the game as effectively as possible. So we'll discuss that. Then we'll get into the transfer window stuff, and we'll talk about Raheem Sterling and maybe just touch on Saudi Arabia coming in for Trossard, who's not going anywhere as of last reporting. So we'll get all that out of the way. It's going to be a long podcast, and here to do it with me is the voice you heard earlier. His name is Paul. You can find him on Twitter. Pause my pencil. Pause. And Clive, you can find him on Twitter. Clive PFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
Tim will be back soon, covering lots of women's game stuff at the moment right now, though, which is great. And so we're thankful to have him doing that content. But currently that means he's not doing this content, which we're disappointed about. But you know what? Swings and roundabouts. All right. I think the first thing we want to do is just touch on the fallout from the Brighton game. And the Rice sending off really feels like being punished twice because we wind up not winning a game that I think we were on course to win. And we lose him for one of the toughest fixtures of the season and one of the fixtures we would most want to win in the season at Spurs. You know, if you said to me going into any season, I'll let you win 3 games. You can pick 3 games. Everything else will be the chance, but you win these 3 games. City away, certainly. And then the next 2 would probably be Liverpool away and Spurs away. Those are the ones, right? You'd say, give me those. I'll leave all the rest to chance. So losing Rice for that, compounded by losing Marino to injury, I think has made what felt like an injustice feel even worse. And now we're all being gaslit with all the usual, here's why it was the right decision. Nonsense, letter of the law, absurdity. I'll give you my view on this in a minute, but I'll start with you, Clive. Basically, Rice gets an initial yellow card. I think it's warranted. It's a late challenge. He's a little out of control. Now, if you watch that back, most people probably haven't, but if you watch that back, interestingly, he is scissors challenged just before he goes in for that challenge, quite dangerously, and steps out of it just before the scissor comes in, which I think is interesting. Not necessarily relevant because he still goes in recklessly, but it's a yellow. Then there's the second yellow, and for anybody who's been on Mars, essentially, there is a soft foul given in the corner. The referee gives the foul to Brighton, which I'm not sure it's foul, but he gives it. Rice starts to walk away. The ball is kicked towards him. As it is rolling towards his foot, he just kind of angles his foot and guides it away from his own path and is then kicked in his leg quite forcefully by Veltman. The referee runs to the incident. He shows the yellow card to Veltman for the kick, and he shows a second yellow card to Rice, sending him off and indicating, hey, what can I do? You've clearly violated the sacred laws of the game. You've violated the sanctity of football forever and always, and I must send you off and have you miss the derby. So that's what happened. Clive, give me your thoughts on how Chris Kavanagh handled this and maybe even a bit on the reaction following.
Very upsetting. So on the first foul, Johnny's mate, it was quick, it was fast, and speed of the challenge means something. And I thought he might go here. When you slow it down, you see, yellow card. but the speed of the challenge was quite extreme. And so, because he was impeded before he got there, and if he was clever, he should have gone down, but he didn't want to. And so that was that. On the, I was so disappointed for everyone watching because the game was taken away and it didn't feel necessary. Do you know what I mean? To change the whole day. You know, Elliot, from the event we went to on Thursday, I met some people in the Toynton before the game who were going to their first game. You know, flew over from Boston in the 40s, 50s. We're not talking kids here. Going to their first game. So excited for them, man. And they go into the stadium and the game's going fine. And then it's just changed. And it's changed on what? So we got him pinned in the corner. Rice gets it's a foul. What Veltman does very cleverly is he falls on the ball. So the referee is duty bound to restart the game. He's just a classic referee.
Yep.
No drama. It's in a corner flag. No real disadvantage to Arsenal. Rice turns around. So but Veltman's on the ground, sort of half holding his head, sort of around the ball. So Rice thinks he's down injured. So he's not walking away quickly because he doesn't think the game's going to restart. Right? So, and Veltman gets up really quickly and rolls the ball into his ankle. Now, you roll the ball into a footballer's ankle, the natural reaction is to have a flick at it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he flicks at it, and then Veltman follows through. So we all see the follow through. We don't see that. I don't see that. It's right over me. I'm looking down on it. I don't see the flick. I see the follow through. And of course, I'm a fan, so everyone goes mad. But I'm afraid Rice was done. He was done, and he just fell for the 2-card trick. And Brighton players created an atmosphere where the yellow card was a potential. And the referee only does things when he feels it's appropriate. If he's been told in his pre-match briefing by his assessors, these are some of the rules that we're looking for. If he's got the Brighton players in his ear, he's thinking, this is the correct environment for me to make this decision. The fact I'm in the North Bank corner, the most vociferous point of the Arsenal crowd, nah. My rule book's out, son. My rule book's out. And he makes that decision. And the afternoon was changed, right? So now you're talking 2 games. You're talking the game with 11, the game with 10. And every single football tactic that I know about is all about creating a one-man advantage and an overload to get in and to win a numerical advantage anywhere on the pitch. And we've now haven't got that. So everything you see thereafter is a reaction to the fact that we are now facing a bright running team called Brighton and with one less player. And I was sick to my stomach, mate, to be honest, that the course of the day was changed for that small event.
Yeah, it's absolutely unacceptable. And I think Arsenal fans are taking the wrong approach here in some circles in trying to argue why it shouldn't be a yellow. I actually think that's the wrong approach. Well, the ball's still rolling, or, he hasn't kicked it away, or, I don't care. I'm, you know what? I'll go further. I'm prepared to accept that can be a yellow card. I'm prepared to accept that what he's done could be a yellow card. Here's the point. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a yellow card. There's videos going around all over the internet, and you can find them of all the different times, exact similar situations, worse situations. In fact, there's one with Rice. Kavanaugh was the ref. Rice is at West Ham. The ball's been placed down, set. The player's about to take it, and Rice just kicks it right into him. No card from Kavanaugh. So we know he doesn't have to give a yellow. And in fact, in the laws of the game, in IFAB, the referee's discretion is clearly called out. I mean, that is an important part of how refereeing is done in football. I will read it to you. Number 2, decisions of the referee. Decisions will be made to the best of the referee's ability according to the laws of the game and the spirit of the game, and will be based on the opinion of the referee, who has the discretion to take appropriate action within the framework of the laws of the game. This is an express invitation to referees to use their discretion and take appropriate action. And as we saw with João Pedro in the first half of that game, the appropriate action was not to show a card. The idea that this is the moment to show a second card and remove a player from an otherwise well-contested game is the referee wanting to be the main character, wanting to be the story, wanting to insert himself into the discourse. And to do it so cavalierly, I mean, he doesn't give himself a second to think. He doesn't stop and let himself calm down. He doesn't stop and really consider what's about to happen. He does it with this air of, what do you want me to do? I didn't have a choice. while also not sending Veltman off. And to Mikel's credit, Mikel decides not to make the sending off of Rice the main bone of contention, but to say that if you are going to do that, you must send Veltman off. I think this is an important detail, by the way. The ball is still rolling when Rice redirects it. And it is still rolling when Veltman kicks him in the leg. It is not in a position to be retaken as a free kick. Now, the thing that bothers me about this letter of the law stuff, we consistently and constantly hear about discretion when it's Bruno Guimaraes forearming Jorginho in the head. Discretion. When it's Mascara choke slamming Kai Havertz to the ground. Discretion. We saw the clash of heads the other day, right? That was a red card. And not in our game, another game. The point is that discretion is an important part of refereeing. And so whether or not the ref is within his right to give a yellow here, Paul, he does not have to do it. And this idea that this multi-billion-dollar industry should not be about the star players playing games in some of the marquee games, but should be about the referees applying the letter of the law, that doesn't make any sense. And this referee has decided to make himself and the specific application of the laws more important than a star player playing football in this game and the upcoming derby. And for me, that's the injustice. Not whether he had the right to give him the yellow card, show him the yellow card, but whether or not we're surfacing and centering referees rather than players.
Yeah, it's clearly an abomination. I think there aren't too many decisions that the more and more and more I watch it, and if I'm like any of the rest of you out there, you have watched it now about 1,000 times, it gets worse every time. Normally I can say, oh, well, like it just gets worse. It's and it's like a Sisyphean hell. I don't know if that's the correct way of saying it.
Sisyphean? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one. Or heaven, depending on who you are as a supporter. But like, you just watch it and it's worse than when I first saw it. It's like, it's trivial. And the irony of the ref saying, well, what could I do? The irony is, you can do anything you want, ref. You just say, it's trivial. It touched your boot. There's so much going on. The where this game's at, the significance of this game, the significance of football, the significance of this moment within a game, the other decisions, like you can just say it's trivial. It touches his foot. Does he move his foot? He moves his foot a bit. You can absolutely and totally say there's nothing to see here. And nobody would have called up the ref after this game and said, that is an abomination that you didn't give Rice a second yellow for that. They would have said, oh, that's good refereeing. Yeah, I'm not even sure why we're talking about this. On we go.
You wouldn't be, by the way. It would never. I think you're making a really important point, right? If the opposite call was made, for example, no card for Rice, would that be regarded as wrong? No one would even remember it. It wouldn't have been a talking point.
Yeah, if a Brighton fan thought this was an abomination of decision the other way around, everybody'd think you were weird. That was where you went to on this game.
Yep.
And my other criterion for this, and I think there's something in morality and ethics that like universalizes this. If this happened to every team in the league over the next week, that was why you got your second yellow, that your player was sent off, and that it cost you 2 points, there'd be fucking war over this.
Yep.
And the rule would have to be changed to, you can never do this because it's clearly making a mockery of the game. It's making our referees, rather than just the one referee looking like an idiot. It's absolutely terrible. It's an abomination.
A couple of things here. First of all, I also want to express that I don't think there's a conspiracy against Arsenal. I want to say that. I know some people do, and I'm not trying to, start a fight. I'll just say I don't think there's a conspiracy against Arsenal. In fact, last season, I'd be willing to bet, if you looked at all the controversial calls in our game, I think they kind of went in our favor a little bit last season. I can think of a few big ones we had go in our favor. I do think bias exists. I know that there's data out there showing that we win a far lower percentage when Kavanaugh referees us, that he reported us for the celebration after the Bournemouth victory for further punishment, that there have been some other issues with him in games. So yeah, I think bias exists. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I do think that incompetence explains it, and also just the desire of some referees to be the center of attention. But a few things here, Clive, that I think we have to point out just quickly. First of all, you look at the incident. I know Andrew has brought this up as well. The incident between Ben White and McGinn and Rice 1 week ago, when McGinn kicks the ball into Rice and White kicks the ball into McGinn. The referee can send them both off. He can just send White off. He can make that the moment of the game. He can destroy the game. He can send players off. He can change the trajectory of the season. Or you know what he can do? He can just discuss it with the players and take the temperature down, which he did. So that's what people want. You know, I understand you have to protect players. If someone gets their ankle broken, if someone gets elbowed in the head, you have to protect players. But in these other situations, we want to see the players contest the game. Players can only behave according to their expectations, right? We've all played sports at some level. You know what's allowed and you know what isn't because of the culture of the sport. And I think Hertzler, by the way, the coach for Brighton, I think I've said his name right, does himself no favors with this mealy-mouthed crap about he has to send him off and it's the right decision and it must be the right decision because he's going to have decisions go against him. And this tribal bullshit, this trolling bullshit, this inability to come together on any point is what prevents the PGMOL and refs from having to get better or ever facing consequence because they're protected by that shit. So I hate it. So Clive, as a final point on this, I think the implications of it, obviously, for the derby are bad. It's Rice's first sending off, which tells you this is a player who tends to know how to manage himself through a game. Do you have just a final thought on the implications of this and the idea that referees should be using their discretion to make the best available decision? And this letter of the law stuff is gaslighting. I mean, it really is gaslighting.
Yeah, that was a tweet I sent out the weekend with the recording of last week's incident, and I just thought Mike Oliver did it really well. You know, no drama here. We moved on. It was 0-0 at the time, and we got to see a game. Right? And he could have done anything in that. He could have booked 2-3 players. You know, thank God Sleeper didn't get up and hit him again. We lost him for 3 games. Right? These things can blow up if not managed appropriately. So that was really good. Back to the interpretation, discretion, whatever you want to call it. If your thought process is to manage a game of football in the best way you can, keeping players on the pitch, unless there are multiple issues of violence and tactical fouls and things like that, that to me is the way I prefer to watch the sport. Seeing a match day develop over the day, seeing the amount of effort that people put in on and off the pitch, around the club, all the businesses locally, everything. So many people travel to see that whole thing changed by that. Just didn't feel warranted. Didn't feel warranted. And I will say, this time last year, we had the Arteta rule. Remember the old one about the managers and the bookings? That came out. Community Shield. Guess who the first bloke was to get booked in the Community Shield? Remember? And it was Arteta got booked in the Community Shield. And again on Saturday, a new rule that the clubs have been told about. So you can't say anything. And this is the best way to sell it, Elliot. You're a salesman. Paul, you're a salesman. What's the best way to sell something new? Make a big hit. It just happens to be Arsenal 2 years in a trot. This is great. They don't need to worry about it now. Every club has watched this, and every club meeting today will be, don't stand anywhere near a free kick. And I'm afraid we have been the victims. Perfect TV game, only game on in the nation. We have been the victims. And we have to move on. We have to move on. And it's really frustrating because points do matter, as we know from watching our opposition in the evening. These points really matter. And it's really made me sick this weekend to my stomach.
Yeah. And it's just a reminder. Really, I think this is sorry, Clive. I was just going to say, I think this is the point. All summer people are saying, well, we're going to be even better this season. We had 89 points last season. We'll have 92 this season. Let's just go again. I think this is a reminder of why even getting to 89 is so hard, why winning 28 games is so hard. Because things happen across the season that are outside of your control, that lead to challenges competing at that level. For example, Declan Rice gets sent off in a game you're probably going to win, missing one of the hardest fixtures of the season for reasons that no one can understand. And at the same time that the guy who would come in midfield is also injured and unavailable. These kinds of cascading consequences and details make it hard, because how do you get to 28 wins? There's only 10 games left in the season. You can afford to not win. And when things are taken out of your control in this way, that makes the margins even finer. Let's get on to the game. And I think it's really two games, obviously. It's the game before the sending off. It's the game after the sending off. And Paul, the game before the sending off is almost two games also, because there's a 20-minute period where we are rampant to start the game. And Bukayo Saka is ragdolling Hinshelwood, and it looks like this is going to go on to be another famous victory for the Arsenal. But as is unfortunately maybe a little too often the case, not the tail end of last season, but right now, I don't think we made our period of dominance pay the way we should. Obviously, we wound up getting the Kai Havertz goal, but that period of dominance from, the start of the game to, let's say, the 20th-ish minute, we have Saka chances, we have Odegaard chances, we have the ball in dangerous areas, we don't quite find our own players. So can you talk me through maybe what we did in that first 20, 25 minutes, the dominance we had there and the inability to convert that into that extra goal that might have made this a win in the long run?
Yeah, so I think we created a lot of interesting 1v1s, especially for Saka.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing creative things to get in behind. The spaces were a little different to where we normally find them. The amount of space around Saka was a little different. But the first thing that caught my eye was that Ben White was solidly part of the back three, which, to be honest, I was scratching my head over a little bit. The answer that it was Mitoma, I guess it's just the right answer. We had to keep Ben White back there for Mitoma. I guess I'm not used to us taking such extreme action. In other words, taking apart the one thing we do every game, which is we get, especially after the previous game where I've been going on and on and on about how the only thing we did in the second half was play the ball into that triangle on the right-hand side till we got our goal. And we all know that triangle and how it works: White, Odegaard, Saka. In this one, we said, Mitoma is so dangerous, and they're set up with, and Clive is going to talk very well on this, how they were set up. I won't touch that part of it, but they set up with a very attacking front 3-4, depending on the stage of pressing, etc. And we said, well, we can't take that risk. We're going to put Timber as part of our two in our midfield, and therefore we have to keep White back, which broke the triangle on the right-hand side. And we said, okay, we'll do it a different way. We will overload them. That means also that Mitoma isn't back there covering Saka. We'll take Saka 1v1 versus Hinshelwood or whoever else they want to throw at us on that side. And I think every time we got it to Saka, he kind of embarrassed them. And that for me was the opening gambit. And it was also, but the thing I took away from this is weird, and I don't know if I like it, but it's working. It was mostly weirdly different, and I wasn't sure that it fully warranted making this change. It probably did, but it does make it a bit of a one-off as a first half. It's not like other first halves. It's not like the first half you would expect. I know we'll talk pass maps, but I think it changes what our normal pass map would look like.
Of course.
That whole right-hand side is re-engineered.
Yeah.
And we have the issue that the left side has still not shown up this year. So I think it leads to kind of somewhat disjointed play that kind of worked for us in the first half. Basically, we got Saka isolated and other people did some clever stuff to make stuff happen.
As we'll come on to when we talk midfield more thoroughly, at halftime, William Saliba had completed more passes than Partey, Rice, Timber, and Odegaard combined. And I just, I think that is something that's worth exploring. There were two moments in this.
That is a sign for exactly what the team was doing to us and who they were allowing to have the ball. Right. So, which when you're ready, I'll explain what.
Yeah, let's do it now. Yeah, go for it.
So what teams are doing? Let's just talk the last two games because they're both two physical midfield. So last week we had a situation with Anana, Tielemans, McGinn, Rodgers, and Watkins, and you had Leon Bailey as well, almost like a front six. And they used their wingers to tuck in to sort of block the lines out to Rice on occasions, and out to Saka, though they didn't do the Saka one so well in this game. And they definitely make sure Partey and Timber can't get the ball. So who's left to have the ball? Saliba, Gabriel, Raya. They become our playmakers because we're not letting you come into the centre part of the pitch. We're certainly not letting Thomas Partey get the ball to Odegaard to Saka. I mean, we have been watching telly for the last year. Why are we going to allow that to happen? Because that doesn't end in anything good. Everyone running in the right direction. We want you to try to gamble inside and we'll nick it off you. And we will try to make you go long. And then it becomes a race to the second ball. So much, again, what's the first half of the Villa game? Wasn't smooth, mate. We took a while. Look how slow that game was. Do you remember it? Remember what happened? And so do you know how we broke the Villa game? We dropped Thomas Partey in between the centre-backs, spread our centre-backs wider, pushed our full-backs higher up on the outside, and were able to create connections further up the pitch. So, Elliot, when you see the pass map with Thomas Partey next to the centre-backs, that's what we're having to do. If you can't play into the middle, you have to drop in between them and make them, their front six, have to travel distances to press us. That makes sense? Yeah, to travel distance to press us. And so that's what we did. And what really annoys me about this game so much, the first half, I thought we were okay. I don't think we were great. I don't think we retained it great. I thought we had some sloppy touches. There were some crunch tackles, which means our touch wasn't good, which meant the area was compressed. Because what Brighton did, like Villa, their back line was really high. So we're playing in a very small space. Very small space. So we had to try to go deep, go backwards, then see if they crept, to try to create some depth in the team, to try to create lines, to try to create steps up the ladder so we can go Saliba, into Partey or Timber, into Rice or Odegaard, into our forwards. So you have lines. So you're like going up the steps of the stairs. When teams can press you back, you have no lines, you have no depth, which means you have no exits. That makes sense? You have no exits you can play through. The only exit you have is a long exit, which comes to 50-50. Fair enough, we scored from a long exit, 50-50, a lob over the top, and lob over the keeper. Wasn't a build-up, and we got our second chance in the second half from a Gabriel clearance, Bosch, into Havertz, over the top, one-on-one, got the shot, keeper saved it. Second half, so what it tells me is that teams have been watching us, so we have to come up with a solution. And I thought it was so disappointing I didn't see what we were going to do. I mean, me and Paul had a quick chat before the game, for the pod, that we were going long in the second half immediately. We had them pinned in. I think that was going to be our solution to play in their half. But I don't know, because we had 2 minutes. That's all we had. We had 2 minutes.
Looked good though, Clive, didn't it?
It looked
They were 2
good.
glorious minutes.
I thought we have them pinned. And so, guys, on this point, I know that some people are concerned about the Thomas Partey factor. What I will say is, by the way, I thought he struggled in possession in the first half. I thought he ended the game strong with that 10 men. When with 10 men, I thought the whole team reacted really, really well. Really, really well. I will talk a little bit about later what we did and what we didn't do regarding organisation between the substitution and the sending off, right? But the reason why he plays, I'm going to tell you exactly why he plays. Because of those lines, we get an extra line with our eights. When Jorginho plays, and you've said to me, we look more open. You know why? Because we have Rice next to Jorginho. So we lose a line. We don't get people up the pitch. So that 5+5 thing, we don't. It's 6+4. The manager wants 5+5. That's the reason why he's choosing this player, right? He wants people up the pitch, and we can play from there. When we are towards the end of last season, when we had Jorginho, I looked at all the pass maps of our games with Jorginho, and all of them were Rice and Jorginho next to each other, apart from Brighton, where we were just brilliant against Brighton. We won 3-0, and it looked a lot like the Partey pass map, with Jorginho on his own, with Rice up the pitch, etc., etc. So that's the reason why you'll have this feeling, and not just you, lots of people do, we look more open, because we are investing with people up the pitch, which is great when we win. When we don't win, it's different. But now we have this other problem. We're being blocked. We're being outboxed. 5v4 in the central areas. We're being outboxed. So we've got to find a way to go over this, around this, because until teams say, you know what, we can't keep going 1-on-1 with Saka, Havertz, and whoever it is. We got to we got to ease off. And that's just a tactical evolution over the season. But at this moment in time, 2 games in a row, we've been outboxed. And by the way, quite out-physicaled. We're not winning it, mate, physically. Brighton were big. Joe Pedro, Danny Welbeck, Baleba. They're no little fishes, mate. Do you know what I mean? And look at Morgan Rogers did with Anana last week. They were strong. And so we've been out-physicaled in there. So we need to be a little bit cuter going forward. But we'll discuss that during the We Watch, Elliot, this week.
Yeah, the funny thing is I think you could read Arteta's comments after the match and you've got your podcast right there. I actually think he analyzed it brilliantly and it matches a lot of things you just said, Clive. He says, it was a very emotional afternoon for sure. We started the game really well, created 3 or 4 chances that we didn't convert. Check. After that, we had a period with some issues, particularly with the ball, and we lacked some dominance in that period. Check. We then scored a really good goal in that moment. We take advantage of the opponent. Then we go in at halftime, and to your point, Paul, come back and we were really strong. Check. Then the referee makes a decision that changes the course of the game. With 10 men, the team reacted unbelievably well. The stadium reacts unbelievably well, and we should have won the game. Check. Like, I think that does sum it up. I thought Kai balled out in this game. He takes his goal brilliantly. I think the one that's saved, I have no issue with Kai there. I think it's a good finish. It's a great kick save. The other team gets to have a keeper, and sometimes a keeper saves a goal. For example, David Raya against Wolves, the header that he saves. David Raya against Villa, the header that he saves. Those are just great efforts from a keeper to keep a goal out. And I think the same is true with the Kai chance there. I think he sets up Saka brilliantly. First time, down to 10 men, going across the goal. It's the right decision on the stretch. And I'm not blaming Saka, by the way. He gets to the ball. He just doesn't arrive. He can't get there early enough to get power on it. So it is what it is. But I think he does well. There are 2 moments that change this game in the first half, by the way, that we have to at least mention. One of them is the Milner injury. And I think losing Milner helped Brighton, candidly. The other one, though, Paul, is the Odegaard injury. Odegaard gets kicked. Some people want that to be a red card. I don't know that I have that as a red card, but I have it as a bad challenge. And Odegaard there's a video actually going around of Odegaard taking tablets, some kind of pain-killing tablets, I assume, on the touchline. This is as bad an Odegaard game as you'll see. I mean, I'm not saying that to kill him. I'm just saying we're not used to this from him. First of all, I would be stunned if Martin Odegaard in his Arsenal career has ever completed 9 passes. 9? Not to mention... Yep.
Is that right, Elliot?
Clive?
I hadn't
9.
seen that.
Can I tell you something, Clive? 9 of 19, 47% completion, 9 passes completed. That's
incredible.
He just doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. And like, whatever your opinion on Odegaard, you think he's the best player in the world, you think he's good, but he has this, that's not him. Martin Odegaard is a high-volume, high-completion passer who can drop in and progress the ball, get into the final third and complete high volume of difficult passes. He wasn't on it. And so, Paul, I just want your thoughts on Odegaard and Odegaard post-injury. And is this an argument where Odegaard maybe just had to say, boss, I got to come off. I don't have it. I'm hurting. Because what we got from Odegaard by him staying on certainly didn't do us any favors. So what do you think of that as something that turned the game slightly?
Well, apparently collectively they didn't think Plan B for Odegaard was better than Plan A. So, I mean...
Who would it have even been?
Yeah.
Waneri, I guess?
It would not have been fair, I think, would have been the answer to that. And they wanted to give him time to get up to full speed. Honestly, on the eye test, I know you had a bigger reaction to him than me. Like, I didn't think he was the story either way in this game. I think there were some passes he missed where I'm like, oh, he'd normally hit that. But it was like we were doing our thing, whatever our thing was. I don't think the right-hand side was where the huge hole here was. I think the story for me continues to be that we don't have a left-hand side, which impacts on a few players. Like, Rice isn't really being used like Xhaka was used. He's not really been asked to be an Odegaard on the left. He's not really been asked to be a hub. He's used to push up and push back their defense or drop in and scramble around. It's just... there is no game on the left-hand side of this team. Trossard, Martinelli, doesn't matter who's on the side there. The second half against Villa, I went on about this, we elected not to pass to Rice or Martinelli or Trossard when he came on for a few minutes at all. Everything went down the right-hand side. And to me, that's the biggest opportunity, the biggest miss right now, because that puts so much pressure on, like, to Clive's point, if they know the thing they want to break down is our right-hand triangle, and we keep White back as part of the defensive line, and we're not hurting them on the other side, it gets easier and easier to cheat, to cover Odegaard and Saka. I'm kind of amazed we did so much damage to them in getting Saka isolated in the first half. And I really think we'll look back on this as a period which is kind of a series of 2 or 3 games where we were waiting for Godot, waiting for the thing we're going to do to balance out this team. Like, you're not going to have symmetry on the left and right, but you want some kind of a left. We don't have one at the moment. And I think, for me, that's a much bigger story at the moment, that we don't
That's
think
fair.
we can use Rice as any kind of hub for the left-hand side. We're getting value out of him. We're using him in other ways, but you're not seeing patterns of play on the left-hand side. There's zero patterns of play on the left-hand side. I ask you to form a picture of what we're doing on the left-hand side. I'm sure you can do it, but I don't think you can. Right?
Yeah,
I can't imagine.
it's not working.
Yeah,
It's not working.
It's or we've decided for the time being we're waiting for something else, and we'll just we'll just kind of cover. I think it impacts on Timber. Now, Timber could be the protagonist to make it all happen, but I think his superpower is a bit more of a carry. Like, we'll talk about Timber, but I don't think it's on him to suddenly magic the left-hand side. I think it's a big ask for whoever's on the left wing, because they all need somebody to play with. And it's strange because we've seen Rice do a much more Xhaka-like job last season. It's like we've said, don't try and do that. Do these other things we want you to do.
Yeah, it's weird. And look, this is not scientific, but I think it's worth pointing out that Declan Rice last season averaged around 47 completed passes per 90, 47, 48 in that region. This season, even taking out the red card, he's averaging 27. I mean, that's not just, a statistical anomaly in my mind. My eyes tell me the same thing is true, that he is playing higher up. He's more disconnected. I also do think that Timber, who is just back from an ACL, no one's saying this guy stinks or anything. Just, I don't think Timber's inverting from the left has helped us go up that ladder that Clive's talking about, go up those stairs one after the other. So, Clive, that dynamic just, it doesn't feel right. And, one thing we should point out, by the way, we got off to a bit of a slow start last season, and it looked like we were trying to change things and do things differently, and there was a lot of impatience. Maybe Mikel is setting us up for the next evolution, something that we're building towards, where Marino's going to stay higher, and when Rice is 6, there's going to be a different dynamic. But with Marino coming in November, potentially back from injury, or late October, we got to do something that works between now and then. So what do you think of that? Rice so disconnected, Timber maybe not giving us left side access, because I think Paul's right. The left side, bringing Trossard in certainly didn't change anything,
No, Paul is right. So my feeling in the game was our skipper's limping around, and he has to decide whether he's coming off at halftime. That's what I was thinking, because we're playing without a player there. He's literally fixing his sock the entire time, right? So, and Rice is nowhere near the action. He's up the pitch. I know this pass map is not a good pass map, but Rice is actually our most advanced player for the time that he's on the pitch. And I don't think that's what we bought Declan Rice to be, the most advanced player in the team. I know this is not a normal pass map for 4 people. Give me a slap, right? So, but it is indicative of where he was playing. And where did he get sent off? In the corner flag. Declan Rice is not a corner flag player. That's it. And so, even though I gave you my explanation as to why we're doing the party Rice thing to make sure we have ball progression and stages of play, in my heart, I'm a double pivot guy. I'm a double pivot guy. But our manager, who's actually not bad at this game, prefers having something else, right? So I've been screaming double pivot for 2-3 years. So I don't care who's in it. I would like to have 2, and I like to see things on the outside. But whatever I like doesn't really matter. What did I see? And I see a player that, for me, is a glue player that gets to the ball first, that needs to be near the action. Whether that's a 6+1 in front, or because he was sweeping in front last year. Remember the Community Shield last year, Paul, when he was like in front of Party, sweeping on the press, coming in behind the front two. That's where I like him. Central, but sweeping. Sweeping left to right. Not being left touchline and then high. That's a big distance to come back. So it's not just his line height, it's where he is in conjunction to the touchline. Now, the reason why he's doing that, back to what teams are doing against us. Front six, squeeze in the middle. So where's the space? On the outside. Look at Odegaard. Where was he standing? On the outside, on the other side of the pitch. So we're being forced into this shape. What I would do personally, if you ask me, Elliot, you haven't asked me yet, but I'm going to tell you. What I would do personally, we have two targets in our front line, Saka and Havertz. Again, I know this game's not the best game to see, but can we get them slightly wider apart? Because then we can go both sides. And that fixes Paul's left side target. Rice can be second ball off of Havertz. And Odegaard can be second ball off of Saka. Not as good second ball, but still effective because Saka can hold it in. He's very good at holding it. And we have our two targets separate, which means we can now use both sides of the pitch and they can't corral us into one side of the pitch. That's what I would do, but and that would fix the problems that we're all seeing at the moment. That make sense?
Yeah, I sort of.
Can I just add quickly on that? I think that like the Saka solution, and we've seen it before, is bang it up to Saka, assume he'll lose it, but you not only have Odegaard up there, you have White, which we didn't really have in this first game this first half because we were holding it back, and you have Partey and Saliba. All crowd. So we load up the right-hand side to make sure we get that ball. Plus, we know where the ball is going to be so we can pin them in. And then to Clive's point, you have Havertz or Marino or whoever on the left-hand side who's going to win the knockdown and the other guy getting on the end of it. So I can picture that.
Yeah. Well, can I just ask something, Paul, then? Because the other team gets to do tactics too. And this is something that happens when a team goes from being fifth to second on 89 points, right? Is teams start looking at them more closely and saying, how do we approach this? Last season, we struggled against Porto and their mid-block. They weren't the only ones. We struggled with some mid-blocks. And maybe teams are looking at us and saying, if you let Arsenal push you back and you just play a low block, these guys have killers. They will find a way to get goals. But maybe, just maybe, there's a ball progression issue there. And maybe if we don't let them trigger their press. Look at the Newcastle game at the Emirates last season. They never left their defensive third for a half of football. They got slaughtered because they sat deep, they got pressed, they couldn't get out. It was a mess. And so maybe what we saw with Wolves, what we saw with Villa, what we saw with Brighton, we're going to screen them. We're going to put four in the middle. We're going to try to block them from getting from their center backs forward. And instead of sitting in our shell and trying to counter, we're going to mid-block them. And I do think we've struggled with that a bit, Paul. So do you think that there is an issue here? And maybe what we're seeing with what we're trying to do with Rice running away up the pitch or Odegaard not connecting is trying to solve these mid-block issues, go over it, go a bit longer, skip a line. Like what is the opposition doing to us? What did Brighton show us until we were down to 10 men that Villa showed us as well? And what are we doing to try to handle that? Because I do think mid-blocks, at times, the stubborn mid-block has been an issue. We tried to solve it last season, by the way, a little bit with bringing Odegaard all the way back. Maybe we're trying to solve it a little differently this season, and that evolution hasn't happened yet. What do you think?
So I don't think Brighton's the perfect game to work it out because we did the White back piece. I think if you want to see how Arteta wanted to solve it, Villa is the perfect game because in the second half, he comes out having had a chance to understand his first half. And what does Arteta think we should do? He was, to Clive's point, super patient, pinging the ball between Saliba, Gabriel, and White, and back, and back, and back. Then Partey would jump into the midfield, spin around, spin the ball out to Saka. White and Odegaard would get in around him. And we did that repeatedly. We did nothing else. Repeatedly till the goal came. It didn't mean it was without issues. Like it was during that particular time. The beauty of that is you have them penned in, right? You know where they're going to be. If we lose the ball, we got all our players around that, at least in theory. Unfortunately, they had Rodgers, so we didn't quite have them as penned in as we wanted. But if they hadn't had Rodgers, they would have penned in, and it would have just been this keeping it in the mixer, keeping it in the washing machine, turning the dishwasher on, putting them in the microwave. We would have had them in that area, all the appliances. We would have rolled up both your fridges. We would have had them in that area, working them. And then they're starting to lose. And now you can play a more dynamic game and you can switch it to the left, which we did not do against Villa. But besides that, obviously you need a left to hurt them that other side. But mostly we went back again to the right-hand side. The ball comes out of the mixer. We go back to the right-hand side again. So at the moment, that's Arteta's solution. Patience around the back. That's why you're going to see Saliba's numbers up. Moving it around their shape, as Clive has talked about, using your full backs, midfield, your attacking eight, popping out going around them, basically, going long. Then the game eventually turns into a game of football where you can kill them with your football. But there's going to be a period of time which is all about patience and somebody stepping into the patterns of stepping into the midfield with say, Partey from the back line. Then he moves forward. Then he's got an angle to get it out to, like, the one thing Partey has perfected is that angled ball out to Saka that the other guys can almost get to. But by the time it gets to Saka, he's actually attacking them. It doesn't just go to Saka. It has him on the attack.
Yeah.
That's the strongest part of his game right now, that angled ball, that stepping in and getting the right-hand side firing.
It's a funny one because watching the game back, I think I saw it a little bit wrong, and I'll be honest with you guys. The day of the game, my head was on Mars the second half. I analyzed the second half terribly because I just couldn't get into it properly because I was so upset about and so it made it very, very difficult. I think watching it back, ironically, I thought Partey had a not fantastic first half and a pretty fantastic second half, ironically. Now, I do have to bring this up, Clive. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do have to bring this up, though. I think one of the reasons I was harsher on Partey in the instant reaction is his action on their goal frustrated me.
Oh,
yeah.
And it's a hard watch. It is a hard watch for me because, look, I think there's a few issues. Saliba and White both get attracted to the ball.
Can you let me do the goal? Can you let me do the goal?
Do the analysis. But let me just say this. The part that I'm referencing is Partey getting run past. So do the analysis of goal, would you?
Yeah. So
good thinking.
I think this is a really good opportunity to maybe sort of say, maybe just how you look at football, right? So interesting. So now we're talking about we're playing 10 men. So all bets are off, right? So we're playing 10 men. Arsenal have a way of defending. They go man to man or they go zonal. For that period after the game, we did neither. We were half zonal, half man to man. Our back line hadn't dropped yet, like we did later in the game. And our front line wasn't pressing. You know why? Because we are one man short, right? So Havertz and Odegaard, front two press. They didn't do that, did they? So what they were doing, they were sort of sitting there as a front four almost. And it even started early now. We had a throw in. So Timber takes a bad throw. He then presses in to fix his mistake. He's now running back. So we are not narrow and set as a back four. Right? So he's running back. So we're not narrow. So we're not squeezed. So where's Gabriel? Gabriel's further over to the left because Timber's gone up the pitch to go and press his bad throw. Right? So we can't go and press to delay because we're 10 men. So Havertz and Odegaard would normally press the centre-backs back to the goalkeeper. We're set into our system. Make sense, Elliot? So what do? Timber presses, thinks I better go back into the back line. We've got 10 men. Shit. He runs back and then he rests on the outside of his attacker, not on the inside of his attacker. So we are not narrow. Making sense now? So Gabriel stays a bit long. They do 1-2 passes. Odegaard says, you know what? They're going to play it through here. And he gambles to the touchline to cut it out. It actually goes inside him, right? And suddenly they're in on the back line. The gap between Saliba and Gabriel is massive. In fact, as Paul may know even more details, White may have even started on the inside of Saliba during this move.
Because he did, and then he jumps out.
He jumps out. So now we've got a problem, right? So lads, I'll explain something to you. When you got people running straight at you, it's actually quite easy. When you have out to in runs, you have to pass that player on. That's one of the
Yep.
more difficult defensive communication actions. Out to in. What Brighton did very well, they also had a front four almost. They had Yao Pedro and Danny Welbeck. And what they did, they would drop into Partey's space, either side of him, right? So, and then the two wingers would go out to in. Minter and Mitoma go out to in. And they become a tracking problem for our backline. Massive tracking problem. They went long to Mitoma off straight from the goalkeeper out to in on a couple of occasions. I thought Brighton's front four movement was way better than Villa's. Way better than Villa's. And you know why they did that with Welbeck and João Pedro? What do our centre backs do? They are man-to-man monsters. What do? They follow you all the way into the half, don't they? They follow you all the way in. Whether you're look how far Gabriel followed Morgan Rogers last week, to the edge of the penalty area almost. The manager's seen that, the Brighton manager, and thought, you know what? Yeah, you go follow them in, and I'll go in behind you off the sides. And that's why White was pinned, Paul, because he thinks I've got to look after my centre backs. Do you know what I mean? I thought Brighton were excellent. So on the ball, it goes through the gap, goes left to right. So Gabriel now, he has a thought. He has to do something now. What do? He has, so when it's almost like tennis. You know when you play doubles in tennis? The place to go is between the two guys. You're not sure who's going to be the dominant player, right? He goes between them. So he's a dominant player. What does he do? He has a nibble at the ball. By having a nibble, he slows down, right? But that nibble made Saliba think he's going to get it. So I'll separate a little bit so I can then get the ball. And you think, shit, he hasn't got it. So they now come together. So if Gabriel, by nibbling, he's opened out the whole goal for the goalkeeper. If he'd have carried on running alongside, he would have only shown the striker, Minter, one half of the goal. Raya can make a controlled save back to where it's come from, out to the near post. Because now the goal's open, he makes an uncontrolled save, which fires into João Pedro million miles an hour. And guess what? All the clips are saying João Pedro started on the back of Thomas Partey. And by the end of the goal, Thomas Partey was saying this to Danny Welbeck, and João Pedro was 5 yards further ahead. So you saw the last action. Well, actually, there were many, many, many things that happened. Like in every goal, there's always 5 things that go wrong. There normally is, unless you're Casemiro. But even Casemiro,
there's one thing that goes wrong.
Casemiro could blame his manager for sending his fullbacks up the pitch. Do you know what I mean? So, so that's what happened. But in the moment, everyone saw what they wanted to see, without recognising the fact we was at 10 men, without recognising we hadn't gone to zonal, and we weren't quite man to man. We weren't compact as a unit. When have you seen a ball go through our team like that? Just tell me the last time you saw it. You haven't.
It doesn't happen.
So it's got to be circumstances for it. If you're looking for the circumstances, which I did this morning, and that's what I saw. And if I missed anything, let me know.
Can I just ask you one more thing on this, Clive?
Yes,
and Paul will give you a whack at it, which is simply, I think that analysis is excellent. And it explains the sort of dominoes that had to fall for that goal to be possible. I think for me, just emotionally as a supporter, forget analyst for a second, just supporter, I find it easier to understand mistakes of action than mistakes of effort or inaction, right? So I guess what I'm saying is when you watch that back, I think Gabriel's decision-making there may be the fundamental crux of why we concede.
Yeah.
But the guy who scores does run past someone who's caught jogging. And so I think while I accept that Gabriel may have the critical intervention that can stop that being a goal,
it's a collective thing.
I do just wonder how you react to the idea of there maybe being, maybe he's just shagged out. It's 60 minutes. He's been running around, or do you think, let's put your Mikel hat on. You're Mikel, you watch that, you see that jogging. Is he going to be frustrated by it?
So a coach will normally look at the structure. So I actually blame Mikel for this, actually. I felt he took too long to decide how we should play. And that's the truth. And I thought he got there in the end. We went to a 5-4. It's all like a front four diamond. We had Partey at the base, Havertz at the tip, and the 2 wingers off the side, which I really liked. So as soon as we got to that system, they didn't have a shot, mate. But we took too long to get there. But you know what, mate? Calafiori was on the bench waiting to come on. When they scored, he was literally waiting to come on.
Yep.
We were
Came on right after.
We were seconds away from maybe going to a back five and getting our four, getting our distances, being much more zonal, tighter together, and springing on the counter. We just didn't get there enough. And if you looked at our team, we were not compact. And you're absolutely right. Partey was slow getting back in. Timber was slow getting back in at left back. White and Saliba and Gabriel were too far apart. White didn't pass on Minter correctly. Otherwise, he would have stayed. He could have stayed with him, not let Saliba go with him. They didn't get the communication right. We didn't get our front press right. You know why? We had 10 men. We didn't want to gamble on the press. Odegaard gambled on the through ball. We're on the outside. This is football. But if you want to find somebody that you don't like and kill, you can do it if you want. People not sure about Timber. He was a bit tired. Could he come on sooner? Could we got Zinchenko on? They're quite within their rights to say that. Could Raya had parried it out further to the left-hand side? You're quite within this time last year, that definitely would have been a conversation. Trust me. He's earned a bit of trust now. Do you see what I mean? And so it's just, I'm just going to try to keep it to football. I have my favourites too.
Yep.
I have my favourites too, but I would try to keep it to football. I have my favourite system, Elliot. I do.
Yeah.
We're not playing it, but I have my favourite system. But it is what it is, right?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Paul, then, just in terms of the way we approached the 10-man period, because I think Clive makes an interesting point about getting set in our system and making the subs we needed to. Did we react fast enough? I think it's a little unfair only in this sense. Mikel's not expecting there to be a red card there. And Calafiori has to get warmed up and able to come on. So I think you don't want to take a guy in Calafiori who's just arrived to the league, hasn't played much, and say, strip off and get on right now. Don't warm up. Just, and then if he pops a hamstring, what are people going to be saying? So, he has to warm up, and we get a little unlucky. I do want to ask you about this, though, because here's the funny thing. I think can I throw out two things can be true at you? Here you go. I think we were the better team from the 10-man to the end of the game. We created the best chances. Apart from the goal, we created the best chances. A big chance for Havertz, a big chance for Saka. I think Odegaard has a chance to play Calafiori in for what is going to be a 1v1 on the keeper. And I know Odegaard can make that pass 9 times out of 10, and he picks the one. He tries a Trivela with the outside of his left, and he doesn't get it right. But I think it is at least fair to ask this. We had 22% possession down to 10 men. We completed 54% of our passes. Now, we did create more danger than they did, I think. So I accept outcome-based analysis saying that it could have worked and we probably should have won. Do you have any issue that down to 10 men, as good as we are, we should still be able to have some control of the game and play more of our standard shape? I mean, with 10 men, in theory, instead of 4-3-3, you should just be 4-3-2, right? And you can still kind of control the game in a similar way. We've seen teams with 10 men have more of the ball. So do you have any issue with how we played with 10 men or our reaction to it? Or do you feel that the outcome of the chances, the balance of the chances, proves that we did take the right approach and should have won it?
Well, probably within the 10-man, down to 10 men part of it, you could say there were 2 games in that too, because Mikel was bringing on Calafiori after 10 minutes. He didn't like what he was seeing on there, right? But it took him 10 minutes to get there. And maybe he could have got there in 3 or 4 minutes. And maybe he would have prioritized shape over, because I think Clive again hits on something, which is in that goal, you see 2 things. You see the front half of the team behaving like we've got 11 players, leaving the back half of the team. Partey jumps out to the midfielder near him because he thinks that's where the pass is going to go. And I kind of get that. But then there's nobody else in midfield. You look at that pass up the middle and you say, talk about exposed. I've never felt this exposed in my life. I mean, you can hit a striker running between our 2 centre backs. It never happens. None of that ever happens. The world's best out of possession team in terms of shape. There's no shape, right? That was Man United thank you, Man United, for visiting our home for Now, maybe that was just, this is the bit I can't quite capture. Was that one moment? Was that could that have happened 2 or 3 times in that period? Was that just the moment at which Mikel says, "Holy shit, guys, get back together, get your shape together"? Unfortunately, they scored a goal. Unfortunately, Calafiori has not come on the pitch yet, and we're but too slowly. Right? Probably in hindsight, what should he have done? Mikel should have said, "Well, we can't have 2 parts to our team. We need to readjust. Let's get our shape right. Let's give me 2 or 3 minutes to think about the moves I've got left, the subs I can make, who I bring on. Let's prioritize shape over everything else. Let's hold what we've got while we rethink how we're going to play the recipe." But unfortunately, we played football with the same players who were going to have the same patterns in their mind, unless you said, "Stay in, keep your shape." Because how do you change your mindsets with all of the drama, with all the Rice and the this and that? The manager may have a view, but the players there's patterns, there's behaviors, they're reacting. And what he needed to do was say, "Sit back. I'm going to make a tweak. I haven't quite worked out who it's going to be yet." And so probably the biggest error of all of it was Mikel not saying, "Let's take a timeout on the pitch by holding our shape. Give me a few minutes to make my move. I'll bring on Calafiori if that's what he wants to do."
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy this whole season of you saying that name different every time you say it, by the way. It's going to be a fun one.
Well, that's brilliant, mate. Yeah, honestly, that's brilliant. I think you're spot on. I got to say it. Some of the team thought we had 11, some of the team had 10. I said zonal to man marking. Similar thing, but you said it better. And I think that's exactly what happened. And then everything you see thereafter is a byproduct of that. Everything you see. Well said, mate.
Yeah. And I do think if Marino had been fit, he probably comes on. I think from a personnel standpoint, we probably didn't have quite the people we wanted to bring on. As it turns out, there is one moment I want to get your thoughts on, Clive. So Havertz is in, and I think he takes the chance well. I really do. I think it's a phenomenal kick save. It really is. That's an excellent technique, that save. Then Saka gets on the ball. And I think Dunk is on the ground, has slid in recklessly. And Saka kind of goes over his leg and stays up, and gets his shot away. Now, I always want to give players credit for riding challenges and getting their shots away. I have seen some reaction that if Saka's just a little bit more into the dark arts there, if Saka's a little more alive to what's happening in that moment, he has every right to go over that trailing leg that's on the ground, that's right in front of him, and earn us a penalty. And I don't think I noticed it in the moment, so I don't want to make it out to be something that was so obvious, but I'm curious if you have a thought on that moment.
Yeah, because this game, I see it in the North Bank corner. So this game took place in the other end of the pitch. So my instant reaction stuff may not have been as accurate because it was.
I thought it was really good, actually.
The game was far away from me. But that was something.
Can I stop you for 1 second? You know why I love the instant reaction stuff for you on this is the game turned so much at halftime that it changed everybody's perception, but you sent audio in at halftime. So I think your first half analysis is clean, if you know what I mean, because it's clean of what's about to follow. So I really enjoyed hearing that. Yeah.
I did enjoy it. I haven't listened back because I wasn't happy with it. So I haven't listened back because if I let emotion come into it, I'm doing something wrong. People can get emotional on the back of what I say. I shouldn't be emotional when I'm saying it. That's
leave that to me.
You guys can do that. You do it really well, right? So, and by the way, you've got more cameras. I mean, you can see more. Do you know what I mean? So I've got to be very careful that the way I see it from 60 yards away is not what you've seen with 25 cameras on it. So but yeah, mate. Do you remember Havertz's second goal against Brighton last year when he clipped it? It almost went past the guy's body, and I thought it was a great finish. But I thought, if I've been honest with you, I thought, I'm glad it went in, but it didn't look like, I wasn't sure that in my coaching manual, that's what you should do. But I wish he did that yesterday. Maybe he had something because he was on his absolute physical extremities and he side-footed it beautifully on the ground and he was going for the corner and it hit his foot on the ground. If he lifts that slightly, hindsight analysis,
yeah,
it
like
goes
his
in.
Champions League winning goal.
Yeah,
he lifts it slightly.
Yeah. lifted, but he was so on the stretch ball. I mean, to be honest, mate, the first touch took it towards the defender. I thought he was going to get bullied, but he out-sprinted him. I got to be honest with you, his second half performance was sensational. Yeah, absolutely sensational.
Yeah.
Within adversity, he decided to just run them to death. You know, it was just brilliant, you know. And I wish he'd have had the moment, because the roof would have come off the stadium if he had that moment. And Saka comes in, and you're right, I didn't see it till literally today. But he's got to go down, and the referee would have given it, mate. He was crouched down looking at it. He could see it coming, and he'd done his job. He had a great line, and he'd have done it. And I kept thinking back to Bayern Munich. If that was Harry Kane or Leroy Sané, do you think they'd stay on their feet? No chance.
Mm-hmm.
Promise you, listener, this is the next step for us. No one gives a monkeys, mate. We gotta do this. We gotta do this. If you want to get,
that's what the top teams do. That's what the top players do. I'm sorry, I don't applaud players, not even players for other teams, that don't go down and get their due reward. We had them on the rack. The guy piled into Saka for a reason.
On the ground.
Take your reward.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You
and
go
to be
down.
fair, can I say something? It's not even dark arts in the sense that if a defender makes the idiotic move of going to ground inside the box recklessly when he's not going to get to the ball, punishing him is fair. He's made a mistake. He shouldn't be in that position. You know what I mean? Punishing him is fair. Can I ask you something, though?
And look,
go ahead.
I also don't think it's not dark. Who cares whether it's dark arts, right? This is the game, the way it's refereed, the way it's played. The other top teams will take their moments. They have you stretched. You go in, you make a dodgy tackle. You take your reward because you earned that. That is how the game's played. It's not always about can you get the ball in the back of the net. It's can you put your opponent in such a situation under such stress that they make the bad move. Like, remember the Bernardo Silva versus Xhaka, where I thought the penalty,
January game,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like Xhaka was killed over that, and I was like, I thought that was a little harsh on him, but I couldn't. The props went to Bernardo Silva. He knew what he was doing. He put him on the rack. He made his move. He got his penalty, and it wasn't out of nowhere. They absolutely had us stretched to where the string was going to break, and Saka had him. He had him beat. And the guy lunged. You take your rewards. It's not dark arts. It's the way the game's played. It's what Harry Kane will do. It's what Bayern Munich will do if we play them in the... You want to win the Champions League. You want to win the league. You earn your rewards. You take your rewards. You don't...
Yeah.
Nobody's going to give you a medal for staying on your feet. That's not how this is refereed or played. It's just how it is.
Yeah. Look, I think we have the ability to parse these things and watch them 42 times and decide what the optimal outcome would be. Bukayo Saka thinks he's going to score there. I'm sure of it, right? So I'd like him to go down, but he gets clear in the box and has a chance to score. I want to ask you something else, though, Clive. In the moment, this frustrated the hell out of me. Although I get it. Look,
you think?
I'm going to say something. I tweeted something and people hated it. You'll be surprised to hear. But it is how I view football, and I can't help it.
Oh, you never change, man.
I don't think you go for 1 point. I think you always go for 3. And the data is out there. There's all kinds of statistical modeling talking about you're better off going for the 3 points at risk of losing the point you have. I realize there's a psychological difference, though. Had we lost this game going into 2 weeks and then the Derby, and you could lose the Derby in City and have lost 3 in a row and your season's over and you're in free fall. I get it. So I was frustrated with Raya for the time wasting. He gets booked for time wasting. Every time he got the ball, he stayed down. He wanted to slow the game down. I can completely understand the perspective that that's a good point. Take it. We played well. It would have been a shame to lose that game. And by the way, I agree. I think we did play well. I think we probably just still deserve the 3 points. We did win the XG battle for anyone who cares about that, 2.1 to 1.8. And so, yeah, I totally, I'm not going to argue with anyone who says it's a good point and I like the point. Do you think it was right for Raya to slow it down and keep the point, or should we still have had the mentality that with the goals we've got this season, we had to try to get 3? How do you feel?
So, mate, honestly, this is so good. I think I got to my seat, and the guy sitting next to Trevor said to me, "Hey, Clive, how you doing, mate?" I goes, "Hey, Trev, He says, this is our bogey team, didn't you? I go, oh, bloody hell, Trev. I said, what are you saying that for? And I'm reminded, then I started to remember all the times we played Brighton and not beating them. Or they've cost us Champions Leagues and all sorts, And so that was in the back of my mind. And Elliot, in the ground, that felt more normal. It felt more normal that we were hoping to win, but make sure we don't lose. Do you know what I mean? It felt more normal. And you're with a deep breath, you're watching the game back, which I'm sure you've done. You're thinking, could we have pushed on a little bit more and got that goal? You're absolutely right. If you want to be critical, and this is something we all talk about during the next 2 weeks, we have this way of playing. And where we start off, mate, we start off like the most perfect team in the world. I don't care who you are. You ain't stopping us in that first 20 minutes. That first big chance is almost like a bookmark, right? And we had 3 big chances in that first half, maybe 2 before we scored, maybe 3 before we scored. Elliot, you know numbers. We have to take one of those big chances in the first phase of the game more often. We have to. Saka's big chance against Martinez, great save. Okay, I can't really blame him for that because he's quality, right? But we had Saka's volley in this game. We had Odegaard's volley in this game. One of them's got to go, mate. It has. It's got to go. Or at least we attack it with venom. Do you know what I mean by that? With venom. Give it a go. I could not help but look at Salah's goal yesterday when he clipped that near post. I know the goalkeeper's a clown, right? But he clipped that near post, and the quality and power on that shot was like, whoa, that's in. We got to find it because we need to find it. We got 120 games this season. We can't be going to the wire with 10 men late in games and things like this, open to events. We can't be. We got to. So I criticised the first 20 or 15 even, more than I criticised our goalkeeper trying to hold on to something in the last 15, if that makes sense, Elliot.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair. I think we can start to turn our attention to the transfer that we made, both in and out, and we can maybe spend a second talking about what the heck we do without Rice for the derby. I think this is a fine point. I would say it this way, and this is even before the red card. I don't think through 3 games Arsenal look fully ready for the season. I think there's a work in progress. Now, look, we haven't seen Mikel Merino yet, but we won't till November most likely, or at least the end of October after the international break. And we haven't seen Sterling yet, and I think he will help, and we'll come on to that. We have 2 very, very difficult away games coming up consecutively, and then things lighten up for us, and I think we need to hit the ground running. We cannot afford after that period to have hiccups. But we've seen the fixtures for the Champions League. They came out on Saturday, and boy, oh boy, have they made it tough for us. By the way, we play away Thursday before we go to the Etihad. Thanks, UEFA. Thanks for that. That'll be fun. Paul, I accept that this is a good point under the circumstances, and I feel the referee took 3 points from us. I believe that. But I can believe that and also believe that we don't look fully baked. And I accept City look good, but they haven't played anybody. Liverpool look good, but they haven't played anybody. And I include United in that, by the way, because they are dreadful. But are you prepared to agree or fight back on the idea that we haven't quite? Because look, we beat Wolves 2-0 and we went to Villa and won 2-0. Good results on the face of it. But I still feel like we're a work in progress a bit. That something's still in the shop being tinkered with,
Yeah, if you're telling me that this is what we'll have to play the rest of the season with, this level and this asymmetry in terms of how the 2 sides of the pitch are working, this what do I lean back on? Well, hey, last season it took us a while to get going here. It kind of took us months to get going. We can get going a lot quicker than that. 7 points under the circumstances is not terrible. It's about half a point off the pace we need to be at with 35 games to go. There's lots of football to be played. They have assured me that these things average out over the course of a season, bad decisions. So that's great. We needn't worry. Other teams will get theirs a little later on. And what we're really looking at is 35 games to go. There will be twists and turns, but if this is our level, I think we're going to be too easy to stop, because this is workable, outable for other teams. The fact that we could only hurt them from the right-hand side. Now, I know there's the logic that, hey, you attack down the right, you put it across the box, and you finish them from the left, like Trossard did when he came on against Villa. But you actually got to play down the left-hand side too. There are too many players who are scratching our head saying, is it Timber? What's wrong with Rice? Is it Martin? Do we keep swapping out Martinelli versus Trossard, and then he didn't do it the next game, so Martinelli's back in? It ain't all just the players. And so there's a big step up to come when we can hurt them from two sides, when we can play down two sides. I've gone from thinking Marino could be the answer to he must be the answer to what we're going to do on that side. And maybe that's a little simplistic to say, one player solves it all. We'll have the option of Sterling off the left-hand side, but we've seen Sterling have his struggles when he wasn't integrated into a functioning team. You just got to fix that side. And then you have two sides to your pitch. You have a little more space on the right-hand side. You have variety of different things to do. So lots of twists and turns, but this can't be our level. Within that, there's been good play, but it's just we're fighting with one hand, and you can't do that.
Yeah, I think that's well said, and I don't really disagree with it. Clive, do you want to add to that before we get to the team situation or the transfer and team situation?
Yeah, I think it's difficult, right? Because there's some teams that do some good stuff out there, and really good stuff, and we're being challenged in our system, what we try to do, and it's difficult because I think we all agree we'd have 6 points, and this conversation, we'd have 9 points, and this conversation would still happen because we're like that. Paul started it last week, didn't he? So we're like that, and so we still have this conversation the next 2 weeks. It just feel a bit nicer about how we're going to evolve and develop.
Yeah.
If our new signing hadn't fractured his shoulder, and we'd have a nice conversation about how we can improve. Right now, it feels a little bit
our opportunities to improve.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Development opportunities that's the word, isn't it? Or something like that. Or improve opportunities. And so basically, our foreheads are a bit more furrowed because we've got a couple of tasty games coming up, and we're not quite sure what we're going to look like in one of them. But there are still shoots there, mate. I thought Martinelli came on and really give it something for his team. I didn't look at him and think, you're not here. I thought Saka, the way he carried everything he got into the last, that's his first 90 since the Euros. Do you know what I mean? Rice hasn't done one yet. So I'm going to say something out loud to you right now. Rice had a difficult Euros in England where he became the ire of some criticism for the first time in a long time. He's come back to Arsenal late, and let's be honest, lads, we're adults. He's not playing well. Right? He's not playing badly. In fact, in this game, I saw him win some presses off back to front. I thought, there you go. You're on your way back now. That little sprint, that burst to go and nick it is coming back. When he starts nicking it high, we're a different team. Then it all becomes clear why he's high. But we never got to see him with his engine revved up. And so I know you're concerned, Elliot, but it's almost like we saw 2 games in this game. But I do think we were going to show a better side of our face in the second half. We just never saw it. So I'm a bit frustrated. For all the people who are watching the game, wanting to see a proper game, never got to see it. Never got to see us overcome a team that's very, very smart and very, very brave and very good in possession. We never got to see it. So I'm frustrated. And now with the I won't see it next game either because we're going to be shorter. But you know what? That team in Manchester hasn't even played Rodri yet. And they don't give a monkeys. So we got to get comfortable with imperfections in our own team. And how we can manage it. We don't want to be perfect now. Because as soon as we get perfect, they'll do what other teams are doing. They'll find a way to stop us. We just have to play around these situations until winning time next year.
Yeah. And there are things to come that are going to change how we look. Marino coming in, of course, Sterling coming in. Of course, I think the left-hand side from a left-back situation standpoint still to be determined. I mean, whatever you think of Timber, and I don't think it's worked yet, was Timber a left-back? Is that why he was acquired? Was that the plan? I think Mikel likes him and trusts him and thinks he's so good he's willing to deploy him in a number of ways.
Elliot, can I ask you something? When I say you say he's not worked yet, where was your what did you expect him to do from?
I felt that Timber could give us more defensive solidity and range than Zinchenko gives us, but with a much smaller drop off in on ball, in possession capability to be available, find the open space, progress the ball. I mean, against Wolves, Zinchenko completed 54 passes in this game. I think Timber completed like 15 or something. And again, I realized we were down to 10 men for a portion of that, but the same is true, by the way, against Villa. I don't expect him. I think if Tomiyasu were fit, Tomiyasu probably would have started all 3 of these games. I really believe that. And I don't know if the plan for Timber is left back, because I don't think you spend the money we did on Calafiori if you think Timber is your left back that you prefer in all situations. So, yeah, Clive?
Yeah, so Timber, defensively, on the rewatch, was quite good. No, really quite good.
Yeah, the one moment he got beat, header on the back post early on. That was it. Yeah. Otherwise, fine.
He didn't get off the ground. I think he thought he might have been going out. He just sort of stood there. Yep. But he was really good. I'll tell you where the bits that I didn't see in LA, mate, was his mid to long passing. It isn't really there at the moment, and if you're going to be in that position and you do get time, you've got to be able to clip it over the top. Do you know what I mean? And it's not really there. So his small distance passing is there. What we don't want at the moment is small distance passes in the central block, because we're going to get munched. Yep. And so his on ball is reduced. So, if we can get him, I say to my son, if we're going out to find the wall, mate, you're going to kick it against it, you're going to clip it, fade it. Okay, he's a pro, so he can do that. But he needs to develop that mid to longer range pass, because then he becomes a massive threat. Now, Zinchenko's got that clip. Does that mean that little clip over the defense? He's got that clip. He's also got the short passing. So, yeah, I think that's his development on ball. Defensively, we've had 2 exceptional wingers in Minter. Mitoma swapped over. Leon Bailey. That's why he played. He's the better profile for them. Calafiori came on, mate, and I'm sorry, Elliot. He won't be stopped for much longer. He won't be stopped.
I agree.
He's coming. Yeah, he's coming. So there you go.
I agree. Yeah, and I think his inclusion is going to change things. Marino coming back will change things. Sterling coming in will change things. There's a lot that's going to continue to evolve. I mean, people forget, but this time last season, we were starting Eddie Nketiah at 9. We were still trying to see if Kai could be first choice at left 8, and there were things that weren't working, and we landed on solutions that looked right, and we went on and we won 18 of 20 games, right, with a draw and a loss. And I think this team has the quality to get into that zone of comfort again and really rip off long runs of wins. But obviously we've been handed some tough fixtures. Now we are without Marino and Rice for the trip to Spurs. And I think Mikel is going to have his hardest selection headache for a long, long time going into that game, because I think if Jesus is fit, you're probably starting him. Maybe you're starting Sterling because he's going to have 2 weeks with the manager while everyone else is off with their nation. And Kai is going to move to midfield. I'm almost certain of that, because we just don't have options there. And Odegaard, and is it Partey? Does Timber come into midfield and Calafiori plays left back? He's going to have some interesting decisions to make, and we have 2 weeks to cover that. I want to talk Sterling, though, and we are going to do a Sterling scouting video this week, so you can join us for that. I think that'll be fun. Paul, I think Sterling is not the guy we wanted when the window started, but I think people think he's somehow older or more, as the kids say, washed than he is. This is still a good player who does a lot of good things. The data on him is still very encouraging. I think, as we'll see with the scouting video, the video on him is encouraging. Mikel knows him really well. He will understand the system from day one. I think he has a point to prove. And, he's going to have players in the team he knows well from England duty, when he was playing with England. So I think this deal is a great example of maybe we couldn't get the exact move done we wanted, but we got a move done that moves the needle for our season. I think he'll play a lot. Do you have any thoughts on Sterling's arrival and what he has left in the tank?
Yeah, so it's not the deal we wanted at the start of the window, but then we didn't know the deal was no loan fee, an incredibly reasonable wage by all accounts, ridiculously reasonable wage for Sterling. And
well, I meant just to stop you for a minute.
I know,
When you have dreams
I
of,
know what you meant.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. You're
Yeah,
like
I
Nico
think everybody
Williams
knows.
and Isaac and
Yeah.
whatever you're thinking of,
Yeah, but certainly wasn't what we were planning, what we were dreaming of, what we were thinking of. But still, even with Nico Williams, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of risk, and sure, you want the guy, but like we might have gone for Sterling if you found out he was only going to cost us whatever 100, 150k in wages. You keep your powder dry. Like, one of the things we've been very, very successful at, the best part of our game in terms of transfers, is Premier League players or players who know the Premier League. Mikel Merino, we'll see how that one pans out. But Premier League players who we've spent quite a lot of money getting, who come in, make sense from the get-go, hit the ground running or thereabouts, and overperform what people have said were expensive transfer fees. They probably were expensive transfer fees, but they look cheap by the time we've taken a known commodity to us. Raheem Sterling could not be a more known commodity to Mikel Arteta. He's a guy, you know, it has echoes of Gabriel Jesus. And how did that one work out? Well, it was pretty good for a season till the injury started to hit. The issues with Gabriel Jesus are not, was he a great fit? It's, can he stay fit? And like, Mikel knows what he wants to do with Sterling. Sterling knows what Mikel wants him to do, the patterns of play, etc., etc. Like, it's just set up for this to be very, very interesting for us.
I'll say this, and people are going to laugh their ass off, as usual, when I say something stupid, but here it goes. For this season, and this season only, I would rather have Sterling than Nico Williams.
Yeah.
I think the transition, staying in the league, the manager he's played with in a system he understands, the level that he's at and his ability to hit the ground running, the expectations not being enormous, because if you think about what it would have been if we signed Nico Williams and the expectations coming over, I think what we can get from Sterling, and by the way, I think Sterling off the right, off the left, and maybe even through the center, if we drop Kai back to 8, going to Spurs, and we want to play Sterling through the center with Martinelli left or right. Paul had his finger up, so I'll let him come back on this, but I think that he gives us the things this season that are more likely to impact us in the way we need. Long term, that's a different story.
Yeah, and just very quickly, like, the one concern you'd have about Sterling is maybe he's still fast, but he's not lightning anymore. I don't think we need lightning, right? What we need is a guy who's really good when we have lots of possession in the attacking third, and we got a guy who makes really clever decisions, who arrives in the box at the right times, who knows his spots, who knows the patterns. Like, it would be lovely if we had lightning quick Sterling, but we just need very fast Sterling, which he still is, clever, making the right moves. He's almost a blend of the best of Martinelli and the best of Trossard in one player.
Yeah, and I mean, this is extremely reductive, so bear with me for a second. But, his sort of underlying metrics last season, XG plus XA stuff, compare favorably with the likes of Havertz and Trossard. I mean, a little bit under what they produced, but in that range, and that's on a bad team. So I think that there's benefits here. What Mikel said on getting Sterling up to speed. Yes, we'll have to see and speak to him on what he's been doing and how he's feeling about it. We have to try to find quick wins to get him up to speed as quick as possible, and him understanding what we are looking for from him and the dynamics of the team. I think that's interesting. We'll use this time to do that, and as soon as possible, get him involved. And I think that dynamics of the team thing is interesting because I certainly see him spelling Saka and giving Mikel the opportunity to rest Saka in certain games. I see him playing a lot off the left, and we know Trossard caught a bid from Saudi Arabia, his agent making it pretty clear that the situation doesn't look great for Trossard's minutes potentially. I don't know if I agree with that, by the way. Trossard, a very important player for us, and will continue to play a lot. But so squad dynamics are important. Clive, I just think this is a player who can do a lot of the things we are going to need at a lot of the positions where we were weak, and him coming in addresses the issue. At the end of the day, we didn't struggle to score goals last season, 91 of them. With largely this group minus Sterling. But I think this steelmans the campaign with the fixture congestion issue and gives us some optionality on the wings. So what's your sort of final take on Sterling coming in? And maybe if you want to throw this in, do you have a sneaky thought that he might start in the derby?
I'm not sure he's going to start in the derby, but I'm pleased he's here. I wish he'd come when he was 17, to be honest, because that's when he should have come, but he went up north to Liverpool. But there you go. Hey mate, I'm not as good as the graphs as you are, but I tried to look while you were talking on how many Champions League appearances he has, because I just have never forgotten the moment when I walked into the stadium against Bayern and I saw the names on their shirts and I suddenly realised what a big club they were. And all the stuff we've been reading before, how we'll beat them. I suddenly thought, gulp, look at all this experience they have on this pitch for these games. This is what they can do. Sterling has played many Champions League appearances. Quarterfinals. This is not new. Nationals, semi-finals, finals for his country. These guys had big games. And when we, and that's what I want. Big game experience. Marino, big game experience. Rice, big game experience. Right? So Havertz, he's starting to develop now, isn't it? He's starting to develop. We've got people that have done it, been there, seen it. Now the younger players in our team have been to the Allianz, knows what it feels like when you run out of juice, right? So, hey, this is really, really interesting signing. And financially it works, right? Elliot, he's getting paid less than our refrigerator goalkeeper, Aaron Ramsdale, just moved on. He's getting paid less money than he was getting paid. And so Reece Nelson moving on, it's just all paid for, right? So it works. We get a player the manager knows who speaks highly about him. And so, yeah, just watch it go. And we see our front six now written down on a piece of paper. It looks quite good, doesn't it? It looks really good, So, yeah, I'm really hopeful. And a player I've always liked. I always felt he's been misrepresented in our national press and has done really well for his country. And I just hope he can do one massive year for Arsenal. That's what I'm looking for.
And I think there's a lot Martinelli can learn from Sterling, directly and indirectly. Like, there are just things Sterling does that are so clever from the left-hand side. He needs to take a notepad and a pen for this season. And maybe he doesn't start and play quite as much as he would without Sterling there. But I love Martinelli's attitude. There's one guy's who always accepts the role or the part he plays in a game. This could be a brilliant season for Martinelli just to learn the other things you can do from that side of the pitch from a guy standing in his spot at times. So, and a great battle.
Yeah. A lot of alchemy now in terms of how Sterling gets integrated, how the left-hand side gets brought back to life. As I mentioned, Marino, Calafiore, there's a lot that's going to change. But I think the Sterling acquisition helps us in a number of ways. And I wouldn't be surprised, given that he has these couple of weeks with the manager, that he could be starting against Spurs. It'd be interesting to see a Saka, Sterling, Martinelli front line in that game. I think Kai will start in midfield because I just don't think we have an option otherwise. So we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting couple of games when we get back because it's Spurs away, Atalanta away, City away. And don't look up, because if you keep looking up the fixtures, like we've got the trip to Inter between trips to like Newcastle and Liverpool or something like that. The season's going to be like this all season, which is why we had to make this signing, which is why we needed Marino, which is why we need all these players and can't kill any of these players. They're all going to have to play. This season is going to be a gauntlet. I mean, they all are, but this one feels particularly challenging given the extra fixtures and things like that. So we'll see how it works out. We'll have the scouting video for Sterling for you. We've got a special bonus episode coming this week as well, as I mentioned. So a lot to get to still. And I just think the sooner we can put the refereeing situation in the rear view, the better. He says, having tweeted about it 72 times already today, like it's hard. Every time I think about it, my head is back on Mars, but we'll have to get our head screwed back on and just try not to make it the focal point. It does feel like one of those moments, kind of like the not drawing lines at Brentford thing, where we might be pointing back to it for a while. But hopefully, if we win the derby, maybe we won't think about it again. That would be a beautiful thing. Let's leave it there. Pause on Twitter, pause my past 6 pause. Clive's on Twitter, Clive PFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to watching that Sterling video with my friend, and I think we got a lot of good stuff we can do these next 2 weeks to get prepared for the derby. So we look forward to that. We love you, and we will certainly talk to you after Arsenal 10. Spurs 0.